Welcome to another edition of You and Your Money. I'm Bryan. This evening we are focusing on short-term insurance. The last 3 years have shown that South African insurers are no longer insulated against the large catastrophic experience of the Asian Pacific region, Europe and the US. It's reported globally that the 2020 pandemic rewrote the record books on insurers and reinsurers' exposure to systemic risks. We in South Africa experienced enormous losses due to looting in 2021 and the national floods in 2022, with estimated losses in excess of 100 billion. And joining this evening is Adit McKinnon. She's lead ombud of the non-life insurance division of the National Financial Ombud Scheme, South Africa. Adit, good to have you on the show once again. Yeah, explain to me the rationale now, because the four current ombud offices have all been incorporated into the one, and I think you mentioned to me when we were sitting there that there are another two to be incorporated. So now you've got one ombud controlling all six, will help be controlling all six different activities.
So Bryan, I think National Treasury asked the ombud schemes at that stage a few years ago already to rationalize. There were too many ombud schemes. They were of the opinion that consumers were confused, and also created gaps in jurisdiction. So about 4 years ago, in earnest, we started to collaborate, and then once we had approval from our various boards, we took the plunge and started working towards the amalgamated scheme, the National Financial Ombud Scheme of South Africa, housing the credit ombud, the previous credit ombud, banking ombud, life and non-life ombuds into one organization. So it's a one-stop shop for consumers of financial products and services. We were recognized by the Ombud Council as an industry scheme on the 1st of March.
And then you've got two more that are likely to join sooner than later.
That's right. The JSE Ombud, we're collaborating with, and they should be joining us shortly. And then we have the Phase Ombud that will also join us as soon as all the legislation has been unwound, because they are a statutory scheme currently.
This evening, an explanation, particularly in the short-term industry, if you have a claim that's turned down and you feel that you've been unfairly treated, then you have an opportunity to obviously go back to that insurer and ultimately report that to the short-term ombud. But is there going to be now a call center that people will call, and then that will be directed to that particular type of insurance that they're complaining about?
So, Bryan, we've always worked with a call center just when the complaints are initially received. Complainants don't need to deal with call center throughout the process. It's simply to register complaints, and then the complaint will be directed to the correct division, and complainants will be able to deal with the adjudicator that's been assigned to their matter.
Indeed, and I know every claim is different and the discussions is, but what is your average turnaround time from a complaint being lodged with you to either a claim being approved by you that it's a fair complaint, or it's not one that you can deal with?
So we strive for an average turnaround time of 80 working days, which is around 120 ordinary days, so 4 months on average.
Yeah. And have claims increased in the last 12 months?
Complaints have increased over the last 3 years quite significantly. I mean, we've had increases in volumes for the last 3 consecutive years, ever since the looting and rioting that took place in KZN in 2021, 22, 23, and this year we're experiencing 11% increase in complaint volumes.
And settlement? How much have you settled over the last 3 to 4 years, where you've had claims brought to your attention, where insurers have in terms turned down the claim, and how much have you helped consumers recover?
I would say cumulatively just over 300 million rand that we've recovered for consumers.
And any idea what sort of complaints, what percentage would that be?
So in terms of international standards, it's around 1/3 of all complaints are found in favor of consumers. And that's, of course, the 300 million is where you can put a rand value to the benefit. There are benefits that consumers receive coming to our office, that you can't put a rand value to. You know, for example, consumers are not happy with the reason for an insurer cancelling their policies, and we're able to intervene and get the insurer to change the closure reason, which has, of course, an impact on obtaining future insurance. There's complaints where consumers have asked, apologies, for their premiums to be stopped, and they just carry on being debited, and refunds and premiums, policy wordings that they don't receive. So there are benefits that
okay, so that's you can't quantify that.
You can't
at all.
quantify those, yeah.
And the number of complaints you get a month, any idea of that?
Yeah, it's around 1,100 this year, so it's gone up from last year was around 1,000 per month that we registered just in the non-life short-term division.
So do you think, I know it's the companies are obliged to inform insurers when a claim has been repudiated or a claim has been because of average or something like that. Let's just talk about, do consumers know enough about your office that they can refer? I mean, that's one of the reasons we do this program, because short-term insurance has always been a grudge purchase. And so, you know, people don't want to be underwritten at time of claim. They want to be underwritten at the time of purchasing the cover. So do you think, I mean, it's an obligation of companies to report that to them?
It is, and it's been in the policyholder protection rules for many years now, where insurers have to advise their policyholders of an ombud office. It's also in the disclosure documents in your policies, and also on letters of rejection. So apart from setting out the reasons for rejecting a claim, they've also got to give details of the Ombuds office.
So let's, for viewers' sake, where are the big issues? Which are the big ticket items?
So motor vehicle insurance is where we generate most of our complaints from, but that also talks to non-life insurance industries, predominantly motor vehicle insurance, right? So that makes absolute sense. And then homeowners insurance generate a lot of complaints to our office with all the catastrophes, the floods, the tornadoes, the hailstorms that have escalated over the last couple of years, probably due to climate change, and commercial complaints are also on the rise to our office.
So you do your office does everything about insurance. SASRIA claims as well?
Yes, we deal with SASRIA. We dealt with a lot of SASRIA complaints in 2021 with the looting and rioting in KZN. But otherwise we do deal with them. We have jurisdiction. There's just not a lot that come to our office from SASRIA.
And what are global experiences? How is that affecting what's going on in South African insurance companies and repudiation of claims? Or not only repudiations, it could be averaging claims where there's average, where people don't agree that this is the value of the claim, of the value of the property that they've attached to it, and you know, those type of things.
So I think in reinsurers, you know, I think South Africa used to be quite a comfortable market to reinsure, because we weren't subject to a lot of catastrophes in the past, but with the increased natural disasters that have occurred, reinsurers are tightening their belts, and so our local insurers have to do likewise. We see, and we saw with load shedding and power surge cover, how that became reduced over the years. It used to be, you know, it used to be part and parcel of your contents insurance. You didn't have to ask for it. You didn't have to pay an additional premium, and that has slowly changed, and the cover has slowly eroded. It's not automatically included, and you pay an extra premium, and the cover is limited. So, and I suspect that with the other types of cover, if the disasters continue to occur, the same we'll see with regards to the cover being provided.
So let's talk about a hot topic at the moment, cyber insurance. Are you starting to get claims where people have put claims in for being fraud or whatever the case may be, and your office having to deal with them?
We see it a lot in banking. In the banking division, there's a lot of fraud, and they deal with a lot of those. In the non-life area, we're starting to see cyber attacks and, of course, cyber cover, and we're starting to deal with those complaints, especially in the commercial arena. They're starting to come through, definitely.
And then well, you mentioned briefly that you do deal with SASRIA, but there are limitations now on South African insurers and how much SASRIA cover you can have.
There is, but we don't really see that aspect when in complaints that come to our office. It's really about if a claim's rejected or partially rejected by SASRIA, and that's where we try and intervene and investigate those complaints.
So I'm going to ask you one clause that I get many calls on off air, this unoccupancy clause. I don't think too many people understand what unoccupancy is. I mean, if you leave your house for the day, is that unoccupancy?
It all depends on the policy definition. Different policies have different definitions, and if they don't have a definition, then one has to apply the ordinary meaning of unoccupied, which is not the same as vacant, and insurers do draw that, most insurers draw that distinction in their policy wordings. But basically, it's uninhabited at the time of the loss. There's no one in the house. That's unoccupied. But it all depends on the circumstances and the policy wording.
Do you get many of those complaints?
We get a few, we do, and we've dealt with a number of those, yes, over the last few years, absolutely.
So the message we're getting through to policyholders is that if you leave your home and it's totally unoccupied for half a day, you need to make sure you comply with all policies, terms and conditions that insurers have set for you, which may mean alarm, putting alarm on. Because, I'm just going off to the shop, don't bother to put the alarm on. In that particular moment, while you're away, there's a theft.
And if you don't want that obligation, then, you can, in certain instances, negotiate that with your insurer. Either they up the excess if there's a loss during that time that your property is unoccupied, so you pay a little bit more of an excess, or you pay a slightly higher premium so that you don't bind yourself to that kind of responsibility if you don't want it. But talk to your insurer, be aware of what the provisions are in the policy, what your obligations are. And if you find that's too onerous, for example, you have a domestic, that's in the home, you don't want to share a code for, an alarm code with a domestic or whatever the situation is, just be aware and talk to your insurer to see whether there aren't other ways to accommodate.
Would your domestic staff at home be satisfactorily enough for occupancy?
Again, Brian, it depends on the policy wording. And we have challenged that policy wording. We don't agree with it. Ethically, it does not make sense, and in fairness, that if your domestic is at home, it's considered unoccupied. So we have challenged insurers, and a lot of them do not have that in their policy wording.
Well, we're going to take a break. We'll deal with emails when we return. Stay tuned.